All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being with Cafecito with Marta today at 3:05. So let's start the meeting. We're blessed to have with us Fernando Arencibia. He is our dearest resident from the commercial division at the Miami Association of Realtors. And I am so happy and grateful for him to take the time this afternoon to meet with all of us. Not only to share what the commercial division of the association have, but also questions and concerns that we have with when it comes to the commercial part of the business. So Fernando, thank you so much for being with us. You don't know how much I appreciate your time and your knowledge and your expertise, and most importantly than everything, your friendship and your leadership.
The feeling is mutual, Marta. Thank you so much. This is really a pleasure for me to be here. I love this concept, and there's nothing I love more than having a little cafecito with my friends. So cheers to you all. Looking forward to this afternoon.
Absolutely. So Fernando, one of the questions that we all have consistently, that it comes to my agents that come to me. Tell us a little bit about you first before we start with the questions.
Sure. My name is Fernando Arencibia Jr. I am the broker CEO of Arencibia Properties Realty. I've been in the industry for over 17 years. I had been with RE/MAX for the past 10 years, and then February of last year, I opened Arencibia Properties Realty. We specialize in investment, commercial sales, and investment residential sales in the urban core. I've done a lot of work around Little Havana and in the area of North Beach and Miami Beach, mostly in multifamily, but I've done my share of industrial, retail, and office as well. Okay. I also have the pleasure, as you mentioned, of being the 2020 commercial president for the Miami Association of Realtors. It's an incredible honor, and I think that, you know, I've had a lot of people ask me the question about leading during this time, and I think that it really is an incredible opportunity, and I see it as a blessing that we have an opportunity to lead during this time, because I believe that whatever we're doing at the association is going to have more of an effect on our members, you know, because now more than ever, they're going to need the guidance, they're going to need the leadership, they're going to need the tools in order for us to confront what we're seeing and to move through and to succeed through this, because I do believe that there is opportunity in everything that we're seeing out there. And I can't wait to see, once we get to the end of this year, what it is that each of us has been able to accomplish.
Absolutely. I really, truly believe on that. And I tell you, my hats off to you in the commercial division and to the whole entire residential division, plus all the Miami professionals that they really have coming a long way to make sure that we don't have not like a one bit of missing anything, from education, from tools, from answering calls, from carrying calls. So they really step up to the plate. And I thank you to you as a leader in the commercial division and to everybody else that really makes our life as realtors a lot easier. And I was just talking to the, what's his name, Jason from the Broward area, that I called him for a question. And he said, you know, that you guys have stepped up to the plate immediately. And I told him, we feel like we have not missed that you're not open on the buildings, because we haven't missed a bit on anything, on the education and the classes, webinars, questions and answers, you know, everything. So I thank you for that. And most importantly, I thank you because I know what you have together with Paul Cauchi. What have you done with the commercial division at the association? So tell us a little bit about that. I know that it's been a growing process, and it's been a very, very successful growing process. So share a little bit about what, you know, the association is in the commercial part of it.
So what I can tell you is, to your point, I'm incredibly proud to be a realtor. I think now more than ever, you see the value of who we are. And what I have found incredibly inspiring is the fact that these large organizations at the local, state, and national level have been able to pivot and shift with the times very quickly and mobilize to make sure that we're providing members with what they need in the moment. So there was never any hesitation, I felt, both from the local, state, or national level. It feels to me like every organization moved quickly to make sure that they were, that they were providing the services that they need. One of the things that I always speak about that I think is incredibly important is that the greatest value that we get, I believe, as realtors is advocacy. And a lot of people don't understand exactly what that entails. But everything that came out of the CARES Act, every conversation that was being discussed at the national, state, and local level with all of the politicians, there was a realtor in the room. The National Association of Realtors was there to make sure that, for example, independent contractors would have the opportunity to have the to be able to apply for the PPP as independent contractors. That was created by NAR being there at the table. We, as a National Association of Realtors, are the largest, we are the largest trade association in the country. And so we're able to wield that power. We're really not a red or a blue organization. We consider ourselves a green organization because we really work with both sides of the aisle for the benefit of our members. And housing and real estate affects every single one of their constituents. So that's incredibly important. At the state level, the Florida Association of Realtors was able to mobilize to make sure, and I know we've had the problems with people applying for unemployment, but just the fact that independent contractors have the opportunity to apply for unemployment, and hopefully all that things will get worked out, is the result of that advocacy. And then on a local level, all the discussions that are being carried out at a county and city level for how we're going to reopen our economy, what we're going to do about office space, about restaurant space, about shopping centers. The Miami Association of Realtors is involved in every one of those conversations, and we have been able to provide input with Mayor Jimenez. We've been able to provide input to all of the other municipalities and the mayors of those municipalities, so that we can have an opening that makes sense and that is going to be for the betterment of our neighbors, the betterment of our community. So I think advocacy is incredibly important. And lastly, what I will say is, and I know we're going to kind of go over this a little later, but I would say that the association has not missed a beat. We continue to work on the goals that we set forth in October of last year when it is that we do our planning conference. We're continuing to work on the new tools that we want to bring on board for our members. We continue to work on improving the current tools that are being utilized.
Excellent. So with that said, let me ask you questions that I have, and then I'm going to read. Guys, you can write your questions if you have any questions as we continue the interview. But I have one right now that it says, what should the residential agent know about the commercial market at this time?
Wow, that's a big question. There's a lot. There's a lot to know. One of the first things for I think any residential agent to realize is that commercial is very dynamic, and it's basically divided into tiers or asset classes, right? So there's not a one size fits all, because you have your industrial spaces, you have your multifamily, you have your retail office, you have land, and every single one of those asset classes, it's its own world. That's why the reality is that commercial is a world of speciality, right? And even within commercial, you could say I'm a commercial member, but the reality is that oftentimes producers are specializing in one of those asset classes. So there are people that only specialize in industrial or office. Then there are people that specialize in multifamily, land development. I know Brian is here. Congratulations on the sale of your land in Hialeah, Brian. So I can tell you that that's one of the things that you need to be aware of. The other thing, and I don't know if you want me to get into this, but to kind of give you a little bit of a rundown of how we're seeing everything that is happening affecting commercial from an economy point of view. I want to give you just a few tips for you to follow. One of them is obviously the commercial spaces that are going to be mostly influenced are the ones that are housing businesses that are most immediately impacted by everything that's happened. So obviously hotels, parking lots, convention centers, all event venues, all of those places that are housing those businesses are going to have the most immediate impact that is there. And then, as in usually happens with recessions, is you're going to see that the commercial spaces that have the shortest guaranteed tenancies are the ones that are going to be affected the most. So if you look at it based on a lease and the length of that lease, then you have to go from shortest to longest to see how those different asset classes are affected. So for example, hotels are on a nightly lease, if you will, right? You rent a hotel by night. Those have a short guaranteed tenancy. Parking lots, you're renting out the space by hour, by minutes. Those have a short, period of tenancy. When you then look at, so number one on the list would be hotels, and hospitality. And then you got to look at multifamily apartments based on the fact that you have a 1-year lease. And of course, I could tell you that in April, there was a lot of concern that about 25 to 30% of tenants in multifamily buildings had not paid the rent at the beginning of the month. The truth is that by the time we got to April 19th, about 90% of people had paid their rent. And now we're waiting to see what those May numbers are looking like. But of course, because of high unemployment, there's great concern about the ability of tenants to continue to pay the rent. Then you go to retail, and you might think, well, retail has, of course, it's going to be affected tremendously, and that is true. But they have, in some cases, some long-term leases, 3-5-year leases. In fact, a lot of the things that people feel, one of the trends that is going to happen is that tenants are going to get into shorter retail leases than what they're on right now. A lot of these tenants have personally guaranteed these leases, so they're in trouble. Then, of course, it's office space. So far, office has been able to collect rents. They've been able, for the most part, not only nationally but internationally. In Europe, over 90% of the tenants have paid their rent for office spaces. And many countries in Europe have been affected way before we were. They're kind of ahead of that wave. But office is going to obviously go through something really interesting. But a lot of those tenancy periods are long. And then, of course, you have industrial. Industrial is probably one of those asset classes that are going to be the least impacted. It's going to be a disparate impact. Some are going to get impacted tremendously. Some are going to have a shorter, impact. But there could be a lot of winners there, because some of the trends that we already have seen are only going to get accelerated by the fact that, we have this incredible event that we're living through.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great insight about the differences, because a lot of us don't understand, when you say commercial, you think that commercial impact encompasses everything. And honestly, it has some kind of, the differences of one to the other. So what should a resi-commercial agent know about a commercial transaction? And can you give us some helpful tips?
Well, because of the intricacy of the commercial transaction, what I would say is the best way to start is to partner with someone and co-broker a deal, so that you can learn how to approach the transaction. I would say that we obviously, we as realtors follow a code of ethics, and one of our codes basically stipulates that we don't get engaged in business in which we don't have any knowledge of how to conduct that business. And so, when you're getting into commercial and you get a lead and somebody calls you, they trust you, right? That's the reason why they want you involved. You can still be involved, but what I would say is reach out to a commercial practitioner that is willing to work with you, that is willing to guide you and to teach you and to co-broker with you, right? Because the learning process, the learning curve is going to be that much quicker, and you're going to be better able to serve your client. So that's the first thing that I would do. And then the second thing is really about educating yourself, because again, there are a lot of intricacies involved in commercial and within commercial itself. So educating yourself is very important. We have we have a great amount of tools at the Miami Association of Realtors, but we also work with other institutes like CCIM, SIOR, IREM, that provide a lot of tools for our members and a lot of education. So what I would say is you have to get educated, and you should look to partner with someone that is a experienced practitioner that can help guide you to make sure that you're, number one, delivering for your client. That's obviously number one. And secondly, giving you that acceleration of your learning curve.
especially when there's so many specialties within the commercial division.
Right.
It's not the same to rent a warehouse than to rent an office space, for example.
Right.
And all the things that involve within the contract and within the actual, need of the client. So
Well,
that's a great tip.
I will give you just a very basic practical example of that. You might be looking at a warehouse that is a freestanding building that a client of yours wants you to list. But in that land, because of zoning, and it could have been as a result of a zoning change or for whatever reason, the warehouse that is sitting on that land is not the highest and best use for that land. So you might incorrectly value that property because you are valuing it as you're comparing the structure that is in that land with every other structure, instead of looking at, well, there is a highest and best use here, and that therefore that land will be valued a lot more than if I'm valuing it only as an industrial space. That requires knowledge of the zoning code. That just requires a lot of experience. No commercial practitioner was born knowing everything, right? But it takes a learning curve, and you learn a lot about, I mean, that's one of the things that I love about commercial real estate. There's no two deals are ever alike, and there's always a learning. There's not a single deal that I've done where I haven't learned something about the way that an investor approaches it, something about that piece of land, something about that municipality. I just closed on a piece of land in Okeechobee Road. It took us 18 months to close it out. There was a huge environmental issue. It had to be coordinated between the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, DERM. There was a program that was a grandfathered in program that didn't exist anymore, but the land was in that program. I drove to Orlando and met with the engineering firm that was carrying out the actual, remediation. There's just a lot that you learn, and it's intricate. And it's very important for you to have that data in order to better counsel your client. So that's why I wanted to just throw that out there.
And it is important. It is important to know those facts, because I know I used to work many years ago. We have Luis Gonzalez in our webinar, and we both worked many years ago with somebody that was Mr. Bill Eisner. I don't know if you remember that, about 20 plus years ago. And I remember that warehouses, there could be any kinds of different warehouses in the same spot that they were doing with DERM. They had to deal with DERM. They had to deal with the zoning. They had to deal with, depends on the business that they're going to put in. It has a lot of different little tools and niches that you need to really know before you really put together a contract and make sure that you serve that seller or that buyer correctly, that client correctly. So thank you for that input. And again, that's why we need to make sure we understand that resi-commercial new status that we calling it now. I truly believe that residential should stay to residential, commercial should stay in commercial, and we should partner with each other when we want to serve the client the best way possible. I think that that's the best way to do it. How would you, with that said, how do you recommend for the residential agents to get to know you guys, get to be around you guys, or how do they get together of finding where the commercial surrounds? What do the commercial team do that they can actually meet with you and start getting that relationship that they can do business together in the future?
So one of the things that I would recommend is go to the Miami Realtor website and look under the tab of commercial, so that you could get a list of all the tools that are provided for commercial members. And so if you don't mind, let me just share with you some of the tools that we have in place and some of the things that we're working on. Number one, we have revamped the MLS so that we have a commercial MLS. We have, cleaned a lot of the nonsensical items that needed to be inputted. We have made it and we continue to work on it to make sure that it is a simple process when people input the information on the MLS for commercial properties. Then we have syndication. So all of our listings are syndicated through the, number one, through the CoreLogic Data Co-op, so that every other MLS in the country that also uses CoreLogic is getting our feeds and vice versa. Then we have Brevitas. All of our listings go into Brevitas. All of our listings go into the Beacon Council in South Florida. We are the only ones that are providing listings to the Beacon Council. The city of Doral, RPR. RPR is, the Realtor Property Resource. There is a commercial portion of RPR, and our listings go there as well. IMAP, Proxio Pro. And then we created a public facing website called the South Florida Commercial MLS. And basically that is to where all of our listings are now in one site that the public can see and visit and be able to see all of our listings. And we have featured listings there that are chosen every month, 10 featured for sale listings, 10 feature for lease listings. We also have our commercial member to member. So we almost have 3,000 members out of the 50,000 members of the association that are purely commercial. And our member to member is very important because we get to communicate with all 3,000 of those members and be able to say, this is a need that I'm looking for. I'm looking for this type of property. You know, let me know before it hits the market. We're able to share some of the listings that we have before they enter the market and be able to share it with our members and specifically to those practitioners. That's incredibly important. And then I would say RPR Commercial is a breadth of resources. One of the things that I would tell you within RPR Commercial, they have something called Tapestry. Tapestry is basically like looking at demographics, but 2.0 or 3.0. And in there, there's a lot of great data that you can draw out. So for example, if you are a restaurant and you're a casual restaurant, right? You do casual dining and the bulk of your business is lunchtime and you're looking for a new location, you're going to look for a location where the number of daytime workers, meaning the number of people that are there because they're working nearby between 9 and 5 is a high number, right? Because you want that lunch crowd, right? So those kind of report, that kind of data is coming out of RPR. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. I have a client of mine. They run a franchise of restaurants. They have 19 restaurants, and he's paying $80,000 a year just on the licensing to be able to get that Tapestry information so that it helps them identify new locations for the franchises. We get that for free. We get that included. And so, and then there are all the classes that Miami Commercial provides, which, as you know, we just created the Miami Realtors Live. We are getting that revamped. So now in the next week or two, and I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, but that website is going to be revamped where there's going to be a button that's specific to commercial, and you could go there, click on commercial, and all the commercial classes will be there. You get all of that, okay? Plus our two major conferences, which is one we do in May and the other one we do at the end of the year, which is the Commercial Super Conference. You get all of that for just $75 a year. So if you're a residential member and you're serious about going into commercial, what I would say is become a Miami Commercial member. For $75 a year, you have access to all those classes. You have access to all of those tools. You have access to begin the communication. One of the great things that we do, and we did one this morning, is we do a commercial marketplace. So we have usually, when we were doing it live, right before, when we were able to hug and kiss each other and give each other handshakes, we used to have about 45, 50 members show up to headquarters, and we would have we would basically share what our needs and our wants are and our listings. So we were able to have conversations face to face, belly to belly, about the products that our listings and our clients and what was coming on the market. Now we're doing it virtually. So then a lot of the residential agents that have joined commercial are now going just to listen and to hear, okay, this is what's happening. This person is involved in industrial. So all of those things are very important. One thing that I will say, if you're interested, and this hasn't gone out yet, but on April 20th, we're going to have something called an asset class. This is something that we instituted last year.
April 20 or May 20?
I'm sorry, May 20th, we're going to have what we call an assets class. And we started last year. It was a great success. And what it is that we're going to have three people that are, three experts, right, that are going to talk about multifamily, office, and retail. And it's basically about, understanding the jargon in each one of the asset classes, understanding the type of client that is attracted to that investment product, understanding, what numbers you gotta focus on, all those things. It's presented in a very organized and clear format, and it's great. And it's a class that we created for those residential members or those that want to learn about commercial. We're doing the class multifamily, office, and industrial on April 20th, and then May 20th. I'm sorry, I'm totally lost. I don't know about you guys, but I have no idea what day. If my calendar doesn't tell me, I have no idea. So I feel like this is like Groundhog Day to the next level. So So
So
May
May 20th.
20th, we're having that class. And then on May 27th, the following week, we're going to do industrial. We're going to, we're going to do industrial. We're going to do land, and we're going to do investment. So just be on the lookout for that. If you're a commercial member, you're getting those emails. If not, I can share it with you, Marta. You can share it with everybody that's here, and that way they can sign up. Anybody can sign up. It's an open door for you guys.
Thank you so much. That we really appreciated about it. As a matter of fact, I have Brian Carter saying, when you were talking about Tapestry, he says Tapestry is amazing. So I'm sure that he's using it and that he's taking the best out of it. I have another question from David. He says, speaking of advocacy, has there been any discussion in Tallahassee about accelerating the elimination of the sales tax on commercial leases? Great question.
Right. Yes, David, absolutely. And I can tell you that this is a big topic every time that we go to Tallahassee every year. We do guard the Greater American Realtor Days. I've been involved there for the last 3 years. And I could tell you that it is definitely something that is incredibly important for us. When we go and discuss this with our, with the officials, it took 10 years for them to start to reduce it to where we are today, which is about 0.5 point, right? First, they only reduced it by 0.2, then we got to 0.3. Now we got that 0.5 point reduction. Of course, in Miami-Dade County, we add that extra point. In the state, it's 5.5%, and then we got to add another percent. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, any commercial lease, if you rent an office, if you rent a retail spot, you're going to be charged a commercial tax, a tax on commercial leases. We are the only state in the entire country that charges a tax on commercial leases. So for years, the Florida Association of Realtors, the Miami Association of Realtors, we have been advocating for that to be removed. The issue, of course, is that we're asking them to remove a lot of money from the revenue pool, right? And the argument that they always make is the fact that we don't have we don't have an income tax in our state, right? But even with all of that, we've been able to make that reduction, and we push for it every year, and we will continue to push for it. I feel that we were going to get another reduction this year right before COVID happened, but COVID happened right before the end of session, and that didn't transpire. However, I could tell you that there is every interest every year. We never lose sight of lobbying for this, and it's been lobbied for the last 10 years. The fact that we get that 0.5% over the last 3 years is incredibly significant, because now we're going to start to see numbers. Of course, they're going to be skewed by COVID right now, but eventually we're going to start to see numbers. And what is our goal? Our goal is to prove to the lawmakers that by reducing it, we're actually seeing more productivity. We're actually seeing more, more money added to the economy. But what I could tell you is, for example, there are a lot of wins that have come out of advocacy that we have done. So for example, if you guys remember Amendment 2 a couple of years ago, that put a permanent cap on second homes and on investment properties. Now, Brian and I and Richard and every one of you who is a commercial practitioner, you're able to go to your clients, and when they're doing their underwriting for an investment, they know that there's always going to be a cap on taxes and what those taxes are going to go up. That took a lot of work. That saved over $720 million to investors in the state of Florida. And so that was the result of advocacy. We're the ones that created the language. And I mean the Florida Association of Realtors. I mean you guys, right, through advocacy. And I could tell you that the reason why we right now are able to do online notary signing of contracts and signing of closing documents is because of our advocacy. And that actually came out of last year. Last year, when we went to Tallahassee, we were arguing for that, right? And we had some pushback. There were some members of the state and Senate that were, the House of Representatives and Senate that were feeling like, well, it's going to open the door for more fraud and all these issues. And we said, look, there are other states that are doing it in a way that is very, very organized, in a manner in which everybody is, we check to make sure that the right person is signing all of those things. And so we were able to bring that data and make it happen.
And
that
look at the good timing.
Last year. Go ahead.
And a good timing, isn't it?
It's an amazing timing, but that's what I feel it's about advocacy. We're looking not only to solve problems that are immediate, but we're looking to something more in the future, you know. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that about advocacy. But thank you for the question, David. Yes, I'm telling you, it's a passionate plea that we make every year. And I could tell you one thing: the positive thing is that every lawmaker wants to get rid of it because a lot of them own and operate their own businesses, and they also pay that tax. You know, from whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they don't like the tax, but they have to balance that out with where do we get that additional revenue that we're going to lose overnight. So the fact that we're doing gradual is progress.
Thank you, Fernando, for that explanation.
Sure.
And it is a very important point every time we go to Tallahassee, so that I know that there's always in the front end of all of us. I also have another question from Brian. Says, can you help explain the cap for everyone's benefit?
Well, that cap is for everyone's benefit because if you own a second home or if you own an investment property, it doesn't have to be commercial. It could be that you buy a duplex, that you buy a house and you're renting it out. You have a cap. So therefore, you know, like you have a cap in your homestead of 3%, that your taxes are not going to go up more than 3% year over year. Now you have a cap of 10%. We used to have, we've had that cap already for many, many years, but it was never permanent, right? Because it was never voted on by the voters. It was done through a, you know, through an arrangement, right? And it had a definite deadline. So we were running against that deadline, and it actually was voted on twice. The first time it didn't pass because you need a super majority of people to vote on it. The second time, the language was changed. It made it clearer to people, and we were able to be successful for that. But it benefits everybody because now you are not privy to, you know, incredible swings in the market that are going to affect your taxes and how you're going to function in that, you know, and make sure that that investment product that you have or that second home is not going to eat you alive with taxes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Fernando, you as a president, as a realtor, as a broker owner, how does this being active in the association helps your real estate career?
You know, the way I look at it is at some point in every profession, you have an innate interest in giving back, right? And so what happens is I'm always been an advocate of volunteer. You know, when you volunteer in organizations, I do volunteer with some charity organizations that I'm incredibly you know, passionate about. Many of them have been started by family and friends that have gone through, you know, through some hardship. What I have found is what a lot of people say about volunteering is the more you give, the more you get.
Absolutely.
For me is knowledge. You know, the fact that I get to go and sit in a room with Senator Jason Pizzo, who is, you know, brilliant. And, you know, we're talking about infrastructure problems in the state of Florida and, you know, taking care of all these old pipes and, you know, making sure that we're looking at, you know, potential problems. And the fact that we get to have those conversations with people like that is incredibly valuable to me, because what I do is everything that I learn, I share it with my clients, because my goal is to be their trusted advisor, and my goal is to be able to give them information that they wouldn't otherwise have. The second thing that I would say aside from information is, hey, basically networking. You know, you meet people, you know, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Everybody knows that. And you meet so many people at different stages of their professional career. And I find it incredibly inspiring to be able to be in a room with people that are in a place where I want to get to, right?
Movers
And
and
the
shakers.
fact that, say that again?
The movers and shakers.
The movers and shakers, and I find it aspirational, but I also find that I learned a lot. And, you know, when you're in a room with realtors, listen, I've had this conversation with some commercial realtors that don't see the value in this. And they're like, well, I just want to talk to buyers and sellers. I don't really want to be in a room with realtors. Well, the reality is that it's their loss, right? Because just like I'm advising you to shorten your learning curve, right? By partnering with a commercial practitioner on a commercial deal, or by taking these classes and all that stuff, I feel like I'm shortening my learning curve, because I'm learning how other people how other brokers are handling things, and how they're looking at a problem, and there are things that they are looking at that I am not looking at, right? So there's incredible value in that. And then lastly is the fact that, what I've learned the most is we really are in an amazing industry, and the associations at the state, local, and national level do a lot more than we ever thought. I never thought that I couldn't verbally explain to people the incredible amount of value that I'm seeing and all of the behind the scenes, work that is occurring at all those levels. So, and listen, I would have never really met you, Marta, and we wouldn't be having Cafecito 305 with Marta Pomares. So,
Absolutely.
what better, advertising can I have than that?
I truly, I agree with you 100%. I've been doing this for my last 30 years of my life. I've been a realtor and I've been involved. Out of the 30-year career that I have, I've been involved for 28. So when I met somebody, because it always takes somebody to invite you to this world of leadership and getting involved. And when I met that person that told me, listen, it's always good to meet others in the industry in one place, meet the shakers and the movers, and meet people that you will otherwise will not meet. And most important to me, that I'm I'm passionate about education. Those of you that know me, that I always looking for education. And there's not a better place when you go out of your comfort zone of your area and you go to those and attend those conventions. You meet instructors that you would have never met otherwise, and you get to know and learn something that you probably would not be able to have it in your local association, because either they're too expensive or they're not too enough for people to bring for them to be making that trip to come to our local association. So I always saw it as a benefit. I still see it as a benefit. I will always see it as a benefit. And like you said, most important of all, we get to know and meet people that are in our industry, that are committed, and that they really wanted to meet you in person, get to know each other, their personalities, their experience, and that way you can connect. You don't know how many times I have referred business to Ocala, Orlando, Gainesville, and to people that I have met in association conventions. So I absolutely agree with you 100%. And but I always like to ask that to the leaders, because a lot of people tell me, well, why don't you go to the conventions? Why do you do this? Why you are the president of the board? Well, guess what? We're not paid on doing that. We're all doing it as a voluntary job, but we get so much out of it. And that's why I always like to ask this question to the people that I invite, because it always comes to the end is like, we love to get to know each other in a different way of in the same convention, that we get to know who's who in the industry and to exchange business to the network.
Yeah.
So Fernando, again, thank you so much for being with us. Give me your final thoughts before we say goodbye. I wanted to thank you on behalf of Douglas Elliman, Coconut Grove, and Brickell. And for those of you that are invited outside of our offices, you're always welcome to the Cafecito with Marta at 305. And I really think that the business is going to be phenomenal. In a couple of months, I will say that we'll start getting to be stabilizing in all this new normal and the new change. But I would like to hear from you how, as a final thought, how would you see commercial, and just tell us, your own opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an optimist person, and I'm a big believer in that this too shall pass, and that there's always opportunity in every crisis. My heart, number one, goes out to anybody who's really been affected, tremendously by this virus. It's heartbreaking, when you start thinking about, the people that really have been, that have really had deteriorating their health and have passed away from this. So, the number one important thing is we got to stay safe. We got to take care of each other. We have to take care of our families, and we got to make sure that as we start to get to a new normal, and I think it will be a new normal, that we're patient about that, because we're still going to have this virus, and at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we have to make sure that we don't go 3 steps forwards and then 4 steps back. So let's make sure that we do this in a smart way. What I would tell you for commercial is that I think that there is going to be an evolution you know, and I would tell you that a lot of the trends that we already were seeing before are going to continue to be trends, or are going to get accelerated. So we already were dealing with an e-commerce revolution, right? This retail evolution that we've had is only going to get more accentuated by everything that is happening. You know, people are, you know, we've had the Amazon effect for many years. That I think is going to go to another level. And, you know, and we're seeing the adoption of things that people had not adopted yet. Like, for example, getting their groceries delivered, right? Instacart has seen an incredible spike in business as a result of the fact that, you know, now more people have been gravitating to it, and they're utilizing the tool, and they're seeing the value of it. On the industrial side, what I could tell you is there's going to be a little bit of a different approach as to how big distribution centers are going to pick their locations and what size of locations they're going to look for. So, for example, think about it from a very practical side. If you had a 500,000 square foot warehouse and there were a couple of employees that were affected by the virus, and now you have to shut down for 2 weeks, clean everything up, you know, make sure everything's sanitized, and then bring back your employees, make sure you test them out, all that other stuff. You basically lost 100% of production in a 2-week period. So now we're thinking that there's going to be the approach of maybe I get 5 100,000 square foot distribution warehouses, so that if I have one shut down, then I only shut down, you know, 1/5 of my entire production. You know, we're also looking at the last mile, what we call the last mile warehouses. You know, the last mile facilities are going to have an incredible impact. So imagine a warehouse, and around the warehouse, there are $64 billion of e-commerce that is being distributed around a warehouse within a 7-mile radius, right? That warehouse is what we call a last mile facility. Those are going to have higher, you know, interest. And the result, and that is because the most expensive thing in the supply line and in the supply chain for the delivery of goods, every time you order from Amazon, the thing that costs them the most is that last mile to get to your house, right? Because now I got to go to all these different specific locations to do that. So those last mile centers where I'm within a 7-mile radius of a huge amount of my consumers is going to be of highest importance. Telecommuting, of course, is going to have an effect on office. How much of an effect? We're waiting to see. We're seeing an increase in people asking to go and visit, you know, offices that are available for lease. And we're talking about going from none 2 weeks ago to 6 in the last, you know, every week for the last 2 weeks, right? So we're seeing an increase in that. And part of it is that I think a lot of people are like, man, I want to be in an office setting. I need to be in an office setting. But the offices have to contend with density, right? Because now I'm going to need a bigger space and less people in that space. So what we expect is that if you're in an office of 40 people, like my engineering company clients, they're going to probably 20 people are going to stay home, and then 20 other people are going to come in. So there's more separation. We're going to have the plexiglass. We're going to have all that laid out in that way. And there's also going to be discussion about staggered, you know, hours of operation, right? So I think people are reconsidering, why do we have a 9-to-5 schedule, right? We only have a 9-to-5 schedule that comes from a very long time ago, right? Because of, you know, this is back in the rural days, right? We needed to get up early in the morning and be there until, you know, basically sun up to sundown. So this 9-to-5 schedule of the industrial era is, to a lot of people, already outdated. So we're probably going to see a change in the way that we work and the way that we commute. We're also going to see an interest, and this might be important for those of you who are residential members. We've seen a huge move, right? And I'm sure you guys will agree with me, a huge move to go into a move to the urban core, right? People have been wanting to move closer to the city center. They want to be around where there's higher density. They could walk around. They use less of a car. They can Uber everywhere. We might see a reversal of that trend when it comes to office space, when it comes to industrial space, and maybe even when it comes to investment in multifamily, right? Because now the person that, man, I'm here in Pinecrest, my office is in downtown. If I had an office in the corner, it'll cost me 1/3 of the price that I'm paying in downtown, but I'm right there. And I could, you know, I'm a minute away, and I'm able to telecommute and be virtual, and I'm able to drive around, you know. So we feel that there's going to be that shift into the suburban markets. And the last thing is, what's going to happen with the retail shopping centers? We believe that there's going to be a readaptive use of those spaces. You know, some of them are, you know, we'll see exactly what that looks like, but this concept of readaptive use is going to be very important for the commercial. But what I can tell you is, you know, this is not something, this economic shutdown was not created by the housing market. It was not created by the commercial real estate market. Therefore, you know, I feel that we, and I mean all of us as members, are going to help the economy in our city, in our county, in our state, and in our country get out of this. You know, I think that, you know, real estate has an incredible role to play in us getting out of this, and in moving the economy, and hopefully getting that V curve of recovery. So you guys are in the front line of this. So, you know, the better you guys do, the better we all do as a society. So God bless you guys. And, you know, thank you again, Marta, for having me. Thank you guys for having me. It's been such a pleasure. And hopefully in the near future, we can do, you know, I could come by your office and do a presentation live and see everybody, whether it's behind a mask or not. We don't know yet, but we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. And you're more than welcome to come. And I really thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your experience, for your expertise, and for your friendship and love to this industry that we all love so much. Thank you, Fernando Arencibia Jr.
Thank you so much
for being with us today at Cafecito with Marta 305. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today, and looking forward to see you in 2 weeks.
You got it.
Have a wonderful day.
All right.